Hi, thank you for joining me for day 2 of 30 Days of Sketches with Christie's Beautiful Life, round 12. And today's sketch has been provided by Kathy Price. I'm again using my Fernwood, and once again I'm using photos from our holiday last year, our family holiday. And I initially tried to stick close to Kathy's sketch, but you will see at the end it is quite different, and I'll have to say that I used it as inspiration, but it is a gorgeous sketch and one that I'll probably turn back to again in the future. So I'm just creating some mats to go behind my photos at the moment. The photos are both 4x6, which is what it looks like Kathy's used on her sketch, and I'm just cutting up my scraps of paper to create the mats behind these two photos. So I started with that piece with the ferns on, which is perfect for the photos because they're standing next to the bracken on the island, and you can see how brown it all is. We had some really hot weather last year in the UK, and Herm has to support itself in terms of water and things, and they don't have the water available to water their plants. So because of the extreme heat that we experienced, everything dried out. So where it's normally a beautiful carpet of green, everything really was quite brown on our walk round. So just adding those scraps of paper behind as the mats for these photos, and trying to work with what I've got. I pulled out the colours that I wanted to use. I was focusing in on the blues and the greens again. That's why Fernwood is so perfect for these photos, because those are the predominant colours in the collection. And just continuing to layer. You'll see all of the pieces of paper that I'm using are smaller than the photos, but that's fine because as you add more mats, it builds up the border around the edge of the photo nicely. I'm just bringing this piece in because it was just a scrap on the side of the desk, so I thought I'll use that. And then that scrap that I trimmed off the fern paper is going up the top there. I'm nearly done with this now, and then I can get them stuck down once I've done my mixed media. Or I might have added the mixed media on this one afterwards, actually. I forget now. We'll see. I've done so much filming recently and creating layouts. I've been really inspired with this 30 Days of Sketches. I wanted to get ahead of myself, so it's actually only the 29th of May today while I'm doing this voiceover. So I'm very happy that I've got a little bit ahead. It's a busy month. It's the twins' 17th birthday in June, and they're finishing their GCSE exams, their high school exams. So I want to try and get ahead so that I can focus on them. So those are stuck down now, just checking that everything's down properly. And then you can see I've pulled out some bits and pieces that I wanted to use on here. I went into my Fern 49er Market film strips and pulled that piece out. And then in that little pot are some of the ephemera pieces from the Fernwood collection that I wanted to use. And I definitely wanted to focus in on the ferns and the other leaves that are in that collection. So this one is from the ephemera pack. The other ones that you can see in that pot above are actually fussy cut from that fern paper that I'd used. And then these circles are also punched out of the 6x8 paper pad. There's one paper with lots of circles on, so I've used those. I was determined to get this clip on there because that says explore, and it's also got a fern behind it, so it was just made for these photos. And now I'm playing about with these floral bits on the right hand side. That camera has been fussy cut from one of the Fernwood papers. I love those cameras. I sat and fussy cut quite a few of them so that I could use them on my layouts. And that Family Together Flair badge is from Hey Little Magpie. So this is from the Sunbeam, I think it's called Sunbeam, 49 Market Film Strip Essentials. So I wanted to bring the yellow in as well as the green. I don't actually keep it on that left-hand side. I do end up moving it over to the right. And then changing my mind about what to put on this right-hand side. Trying to decide if I can get 2 of the fern leaves on, but I don't. I just use one in the end. And then this is going to be my title, and it just says My Beautiful World. And that relates to everything really, the beauty of Herm Island and also my gorgeous children. So these are some of the JD3DPrint wood chevrons. These are the bigger ones that I love to use as well. So I wanted to have 3 going across the top of the photo there. I'm still fussing about with these clusters, so I can't quite work out how they're going to go. Still messing with the 2 ferns. And even where that title is going to go, I'm not quite sure. And I have to be careful with that photo of Amelia because she's quite close to the left-hand side, so I don't want things overlapping too much and covering her up. So I decided at this point that I'm going to stick the photos down, so just using some foam pads to do that. I don't want to add too many, just enough to hold it up and keep it down on the layout. I'm just checking that I'm happy, and then I shall take the backing off and stick that down. There we go. Because now the photos are stuck down, I can start committing more. I really do need to make some decisions soon. So just bringing everything back in and trying to work out how I want to position it again. Sometimes starting afresh like this is the best way to go. So I decide that yes, I'm happy with that fern there. So that's going down, and I'm popping it up onto foam pads because the photo's on foam pads just to keep it the same level. And I really wanted to use this floral piece as well. It just works nicely with the photo. So trying to work out how I'm going to get that on. Decide to layer it on top. And that Flair badge is going to go there, as is the wood geotag from JD3DPrint. And then this title. Still not quite sure where it's going to go, so I'm just leaving that for now, and I'll start building up this cluster on the right hand side. So I know that I want to focus in on the ferns because obviously, like I say, that's where they were, in amongst all the ferns. And in the end I decided that this title is best on that photo of Amelia because it's just blank space really at the bottom, so that works nicely. So now adding some foam behind this fern, again to lift it up to the same height as the photo. Just like that. And then I want to glue down this film strip. So I'm more or less just gluing down the main film strip, and then that negative piece that came from the middle of it, I'm just going to add some glue underneath just to keep that in place. Underneath the photo, I should say. So now this camera, I'm just adding some foam to the right hand side just to keep it again at the same level as the photo. Considering where to put this circle, and that ends up there. And then looking to see what else I pulled out, what else I'd wanted to use. Still having to play with these blueberries. There were some blueberries on our walks around the island, so they would have worked, but I just wasn't quite happy with how they looked. And this flower, when I move it down the page, I realise that actually it looks quite nice there. There's not a cluster. There is a cluster on the bottom right-hand corner of that photo in the sketch, but not at the very bottom, as you can see. But this floral just works so well down there, and I am really pleased with how it looked at the end of the layout. So I was right to put it there. So here is where I'm bringing that yellow film strip over to the right hand side, and that looks much better there. And now bringing in some of the 49er Market Ticket Essentials. These seem to be my lifeblood at the moment. I'm using them on a lot of layouts. They just work so nicely. So some of the silver grey ones and some of the green ones. And now this paper clip with the flare on the end. I wasn't happy with it at the top of the layout. It just looked too clunky, so I've moved it into this cluster on the right hand side there. So I've just added an epoxy flare to that circle and nestling that in there just bringing in some layering pieces and different textures. And now I decide to add this second fern to this cluster. I'm just working out how to point it. And there it's going to point more or less upwards. I'm really happy with how that cluster's turned out now with those 3 pieces. So back with these wood chevrons. Keep getting moved around the layout, but I'm happy with them there now. And then I decide I want to add this poppy head to that dandelion flower, just in that bottom corner. And it just draws the eye from the top of the page right the way down that right hand side. So I'm going to add another one of these punched out circles there at the bottom. And then this chipboard piece that says wake up with a purpose. And then the one that says noted. So now coming in with my journaling, so drawing my guidelines, and then I write it up. And I just said, I woke up feeling a little brighter, so we went for a stomp around the island. It was so humid, we couldn't get over how dry everything was after the extreme heat of this summer. The bracken was mostly brown with only a few hanging on to their vibrant colour. So once that was done, I decided that the layout looked way too white for my liking. So I've grabbed a new set of All and Create stamps. This one is called, I've got it here, Textural Elements. It's number 372. And I'm just using my oxide inks in the bundled sage to add some of those stamps around the edges of the layout. And sometimes I'm going in with a second stamp, which creates a lighter image. And I like how that looks. And then bringing one of the other stamps in. So just pulling that one off. And this is more like a mini border. And I'm using that with pine needles. I think it was pine needles that I used, or mowed lawn it might be actually. Just to bring in a different green, and it matches well with the greens, the bluey greens that are in this collection, like on that noted tag at the top. And I just had to move it on the stamp block so that it wasn't in the way of that paper clip, because that was stopping the block from going down. And then once I've done a few of these around the page, I'm going to be very lazy and stamp some of the star circles that are on that stamp set, but just using my finger as the block. They're really tiny stamps and they're really sticky, so they adhere nicely to my finger. Just adding some tickets at the bottom here. So I tore it in half and added the back of one piece and the front of the other. Yeah, it was pine needles, wasn't it, that ink that I used. So now coming in with antique linen. And as I say, just using my finger as my block so that I can just stamp this all round in the antique linen. And then in this iced spruce, and I'm choosing a different size to add that. And once again, just scattering them all around the layout. And this is a beautiful greeny grey. And I'm just loving adding all these different stamped elements around the page. So now getting those wood chevrons glued down. And it's at this point I think I might be finished, but then I decide I do want to bring in some of my creamies, sage it isn't so, because that green just works so nicely. Oh, I do bring in the smallest star now with black soot, just to add some black, because that really makes the other colours pop. Adding that. And then, yes, as I say, I come in with the creamies, and that works really nicely to oxidise those inks and blend them in a little bit. They water down, and it creates a really nice texture and finish to the layout. So do check the description box down below to see everybody else who's joining in on this hop. There's a playlist that's been created by Christie, and I shall leave the details for Kathy, who designed the sketch, down there below as well. So do watch that playlist and see everybody else who's joining in. There are some amazing creators who join in on this sketch challenge. I think this is the third time that I've done it now, and I really enjoy it so very much. And I've got a sketch coming up this month as well, so that's very exciting. Can't wait to see what everybody does with it. It's a bit nerve-wracking when you create something for people to use, to see if they'll enjoy it and how they interpret it. So almost there now, just a few splatters, adding a bit more around. And then I do come in with my gold splatters as well at the end, so I'm just covering up the photos to be able to do that. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me. This is day 2, and I shall see you tomorrow for day 3. Thanks again. Bye.